In yesterday's video, I gave you guys my 5 bold predictions for the 2024 NHL offseason. Now for today's video, I'm going to react to some of yours. As always, when it comes to these interactive videos, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to each and every one of you who participated and left a comment either on yesterday's video or under the community tab post. Even if your comment isn't featured in today's video, just know I read them all and I appreciate all of you guys. And if this is your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button. And with that all being said, let's go ahead and start off with the first comment from Jared, who says Stamkos turns heel and signs in Florida. This would be one of the craziest free agent signings in recent memory. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. Do you feel like the Tampa Bay Lightning fan base would completely turn on Stamkos for signing with a team like Florida in free agency? If he signed with any other team in the league, I still think this is a guy that would be beloved in Tampa. He would get cheered when he returns to play against the Lightning, but if he returned to play against the Lightning as a member of the Panthers, I have a hard time imagining him getting cheered. I definitely don't think it would be the same kind of hostile environment as when John Tavares returned to New York to play against the Islanders as a member of the Maple Leafs. Stamkos obviously played with the Lightning way longer than Tavares played with the Islanders, and Stamkos also captained the Tampa Bay Lightning to back-to-back Stanley Cups. So I feel like no matter what Stamkos does, he's going to be beloved by the majority of the Tampa Bay Lightning fan base, but if he signs with Florida, I guarantee there would definitely be at least a tiny pocket of the fan base that completely turns on him. The next comment we have comes from Derek Crow, who says Chicago will name Bedard the captain at some point during the offseason, making him the youngest captain in NHL history, and also really appreciate the kind words, and I'm glad you enjoy the videos. Honestly, I wouldn't be all that surprised if this did happen. I think we all know Connor Bedard is the next captain of the Chicago Blackhawks. It's just a matter of when they decide to name him captain. And looking back at some of the other youngest captains in NHL history, Connor McDavid, Gabe Landeskog, Crosby, Jonathan Toews, it's not like any of those decisions to make those players captain at such a young age backfired. Like I said, we all know he's going to be captain eventually, so why not just get it out of the way now? I can definitely see this happening. This next comment comes from Cam Popplestone, who says Marner refuses to waive his no trade and forces himself to UFA next summer, betting on himself. I don't think this one is too far-fetched either. It was reported that Mitch Marner wants to play out the remaining year of his deal in Toronto and then hit free agency, which is obviously a pretty crappy situation for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but if Mitch Marner really wants that to happen, then he can make it happen, and he has every right to do so. That's why no movement clauses are a thing, but that doesn't mean that that choice would come without consequence. If Mitch Marner does hold the Maple Leafs hostage like that throughout this season, then he's going to become public enemy number 1 in Toronto, and they might even have to put his ass in the witness protection program. This next bold prediction comes from Karen Ratton, who says, semi-bold, Utah makes a splash for Reinhart. I'm actually on board with this one. Maybe it doesn't end up being Sam Reinhart. I still kind of feel like Sam Reinhart is going to end up re-signing in Florida, but under new ownership, relocating to a different state, trying to build a new fan base, I think they're going to want to make a big first impression. I'm expecting them to make maybe a splash or 2 or 3 over the course of the summer. They have an abundance of cap space. I'm expecting them to be very active in free agency, and they also have an absurd amount of draft picks as to where they can be pretty active in the trade market as well. I'd honestly label Utah as a dark horse for somebody like Martin Necas. Moving along now to the next bold prediction. This one comes from Thomas, who says Anaheim finally trades Gibson to LA. Not a blockbuster deal by any means, but it gives Gibson a chance at a cup and opens up the starting role for Dostal. I feel like we've been hearing John Gibson trade rumors for like a decade now. I know it's not been that long, but that's what it feels like. When it comes to a John Gibson trade, I'm honestly at the point where like, I'll believe it when I see it. I'd be surprised if this is the offseason he's finally traded, due to the fact that there's 2 other goaltenders on the trade market right now in Jacob Markstrom and Linus Ullmark, who both make less than John Gibson, who both have been better than John Gibson over the last 3-4 seasons, and are also both signed for fewer years. John Gibson has a cap of $6.4 million and is signed through 2026-27. I think if a Gibson trade is ever going to happen, it's probably going to be in the final year or 2 of that contract, because right now that's a pretty big contract for a team to take on for a guy in John Gibson who just hasn't really been the greatest over the last 3-4 seasons. I know he's been playing on a bad Anaheim Ducks team, but even when you isolate his performance and look at his goals saved above expected, this past season was actually the first year it wasn't negative in the last 4 seasons, and it was still only 1.02. This next bold prediction comes from Hey Maple, who says there's so many good RFAs that I feel like someone could get offer sheeted. My hot take is that despite their cap space, someone plays hardball with Yzerman and offer sheets one of Raymond or Sider. I don't know about you guys, but I have been dying to see a big name RFA offer sheeted for a long time now. We got the Kotkaniemi offer sheet with Carolina a few years back, and that was cool and everything, but I'm talking like one of the real big name RFAs, where in order to actually get them to sign the offer sheet, you have to throw them like 10 mil plus per season. offseason where the compensation is 4 first-round draft picks. Something like that would be really cool to see happen, just not this offseason. I swear if it finally happens when Detroit has 2 of the big-name RFAs, I'll snap. I don't think I can handle one of Sider or Raymond getting offer sheeted and Detroit missing out on the playoffs thanks to an empty net goal all in a couple of months span. If that happens, you guys very well may see me star in the next Joker movie. This next bold prediction comes from Eliminator, who says Sens buyout Jonas Korpisalo, similar to your Justin Hall take, wouldn't cost the Sens that much, and with them rumored to be in on every goalie on the trade market, something will have to happen to create the cap and roster space. I think you're on the right track with this one. If the Senators do end up landing someone like Ullmark or Markstrom, and like you said, it has been reported that the Senators are in on both of those guys, then it really doesn't make much sense to carry Jonas Korpisalo into next season as a $4 million backup. If they're going to make a big trade for a starting goaltender, they're going to have to find a way to get out from under this Jonas Korpisalo contract, and I can't imagine there's going to be a team out there willing to take it on, considering the fact that there's still 4 more years. So a buyout may be the Senators' only option. It would be a bit of a longer one. The Senators would have some dead cap space for the next 8 seasons, but the most it would be in a single season is a little over 2.3 mil according to the cap-friendly buyout calculator, and then for the final 4 years, it would just be a little over 1.3 mil per season, and with the cap only expected to continue to rise over these next few years, barring another world-stopping event, knock on wood. But a buyout like this really wouldn't have that much of an impact on the Senators' cap situation moving forward. It's obviously not ideal to buy out a guy, who you just signed to a 5-year contract last offseason, but if the Senators want to make improvements in net, this might be something they have to do. Moving on now to the next bold prediction. This one comes from Justin, who says Berkeley Catton goes top 5 in the draft. I don't think this is going to happen, but I'm definitely not counting out the possibility of it happening. Berkeley Catton is insanely skilled. If you haven't seen his highlight reel from the WHL this past season, go give it a watch. The dude put on a show. 116 points in 68 games. I was reading a mock draft on Sportsnet's website the other day by Sam Constantino, and he had Berkeley Catton going 11 to the Buffalo Sabres, and he wrote that it would almost be like a do-over of the Zach Benson pick from last year. Berkeley Catton and Zach Benson, they're both, undersized forwards who absolutely dominated the WHL in their draft year. Obviously, the Zach Benson pick is looking pretty damn good for the Buffalo Sabres just 1 year later, and I think if a team's able to select Berkeley Catton this year outside of the top 10, it's a draft pick that'll end up looking pretty good for them as well, whoever that team ends up being. I'm hoping and praying he's available for the Red Wings at number 15, but I can't see that happening. I honestly think there's probably a better chance of him being selected inside the top 5 than him sliding to Detroit at 15. The next bold prediction we have comes from Jack Green 108, who says Patrick Kane comes back to Chicago to mentor Bedard. This is an idea that's been thrown around quite a bit since the regular season ended, and it's definitely a cool idea, but it doesn't sound like there's any chance it's going to happen. Blackhawks GM Kyle Davidson actually commented on the possibility of bringing back Patrick Kane this offseason a couple of days ago, and he said, I think we've made some very tough decisions on some long-time players. I don't foresee us returning to that situation, and honestly, I feel like it's probably a good thing that Kyle Davidson came out and said this, just so there isn't any Blackhawks fans that get their hopes up that Kane could come back to Chicago. Obviously, things could definitely change in the NHL and nothing's set in stone, but it doesn't really sound like the Blackhawks are interested, and I don't think Patrick Kane would be either. At 35 years old, likely in the final couple of years of his career, I think he probably wants to go to a team that's a little bit closer to Stanley Cup contention than Chicago is. Moving on now to the next bold prediction. This one comes from False and Facts Sports, who says Martin Necas won't be traded, Canes won't get the package they want in return, and will decide he's more valuable to keep, signs a 3-year deal with a cap hit of $7 million. I'd be very surprised if Necas ends up staying in Carolina. I mean, maybe if Jake Gensel ends up leaving as a UFA, Carolina could circle back and try to make things work with Necas, but honestly, I kind of get the feeling that Necas is going to be traded before free agency on July 1st anyways. He wants a long-term deal. He wants to go somewhere where he's heavily featured, a top-line forward, someone who's on the top power play unit. Usually when trade rumors are this intense about a player and we're getting different reports about certain teams being interested and updates every other day, there's no going back, and that player usually does end up getting moved. Not saying it's impossible, but I would be pretty shocked if Martin Necas is still in a Carolina Hurricanes uniform next season. This next bold prediction comes from User, who says Macklin Celebrini does not go first overall. I think San Jose needs defense, and also appreciate the kind words. I'm glad you enjoyed the videos. I think overall Mike Grier has done a pretty good job since taking over as San Jose Sharks general manager, but if he does not take Celebrini first overall, then you can throw everything, all the good he's done in San Jose so far out the window and fire his ass. I know San Jose needs defense, but guess what? They need talent, and Macklin Celebrini is the most talented player in this draft class. He's going first overall. I'd bet my life on it. The next bold prediction we have comes from Chris, who says the Capitals will be cursed for buying and getting rid of Cap Friendly, and will have a season plagued with injuries and poor play. Listen, I never wish injury upon anybody. I think it's terrible to do, but them being cursed with poor play for buying and getting rid of Cap Friendly, that's something I can get behind. Man, I'm really going to miss Cap Friendly. I still honestly can't even believe that's happening. It's going to make making certain videos a lot more difficult, that's for sure. Such a useful tool for not just hockey content creators, but hockey fans in general. It's a fun website to just mess around on, has a lot of fun features. All we can hope for is that someone steps up and makes a website similar to Cap Friendly. I think right now the best option aside from Cap Friendly is probably Puckpedia. And now finally, finishing out the video with the last bold prediction. This one comes from Tarquin, who says, bold prediction, Patrick Kane will leave Detroit and Steve Yzerman will sign Steven Stamkos to fill the role Kane played. Kane needed to prove he can play and be effective and could make more with a cup contender. Yzerman drafted Stamkos. They know each other very well. Stamkos knows Coach Lalone well. If Tampa continues to offend Stamkos during negotiations, he won't go anywhere that he doesn't have some familiarity. This is something that I never really thought of, probably just because I just can't see Steven Stamkos playing anywhere other than Tampa Bay. But if he does end up leaving, he does have a lot of connections to Detroit from his time in Tampa. I don't hate this idea at all. Stamkos is still a very effective player, scored 40 goals this past season. If Patrick Kane does end up leaving, I think Stamkos would be a great fit as someone to come in and fill that void. Maybe on a 2-3 year deal with a cap hit of $6 million, something in that range. So that is going to wrap up today's video reacting to your guys' bold predictions for the 2024 NHL offseason. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, huge thank you and shout out to each and every one of you who participated and either left a comment under yesterday's video or under the community tab posts. Even if your comment wasn't featured in this video, just know I read every single one and I appreciate all of you guys. If you got all the way to the end of the video and you ended up enjoying yourself, please remember to leave it a like. It definitely does help with the videos a ton, and it's the best way to let me know that you enjoyed. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want NHL content just like this all year round, hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all again soon.